Hello everybody, it's me, Macaroni2, and I'm back here today with a little combination of a couple hyperfixations that I have had over the last few years. Civilization 6 here, one of my favorite games that I picked up in early 2023, and around March of 2023 I decided that I wanted to combine this with my favorite, and I think pretty much objectively the best Minecraft map ever made, which would be Drehmal Primordial. And so what I did back then was I made Drehmal Primordial version 2.1 as a WorldBuilder map, a custom map here in Civilization 6. And I played probably 30 to 40 full matches on that. And I went to go record a video of it here for this after I made my map video. And unfortunately, it seems like that map was corrupted. So I have started over from scratch, and what I have done is I have made the new version of Dremel, Apotheosis version 2.2, which came out in full a few months ago now. And I have rebuilt that map from scratch with roughly the same terrain as the old version, but with a couple of tweaks here and there. And that's what I'm going to be showing off today. Alright, and before we start, I would just say that if you have not played this, if you have not played the Dremel map yourself, first off, you absolutely should fix that, because it is one of the best experiences that there is in gaming. And second, I'll just give a compulsory spoiler warning here. This will reveal basically all of the terrain features of the map itself. And I think that the exploration of that map is a huge part of the experience there. So if you don't care about that, or if you've already played it, then go on ahead. But if you haven't, then fair warning's been given. This is it. This is the WorldBuilder map. I have duplicated the terrain of Dremel itself as best as I could. I know it's off-center. That's because I started from down here and I built my way up, and I didn't use as much space as I thought I would. Oh well. It doesn't really matter, there's nothing out on the other side. So yeah, if you're not familiar with the Civ WorldBuilder, there are only, I think, 4 types of land terrain that I can work with here, and obviously Dremel is an extremely diverse landscape that is very, very difficult to replicate, and so this doesn't really do it full justice in any way, but it does get the approximate layout of the continent right, I would say. What do you got to work with? You have grassland, plains, desert, and tundra, and then snow, but snow is kind of useless, and then just ocean tiles. And it can be flat, it can be hills, it can be mountains. Mountains are impassable, and then you can add features onto this. So you can add woods, you can add rainforest, like down here, or you can add marsh and floodplain, stuff like that. So yeah, this is not as detailed as the real Dremel, which is, you know, a 12,000 by 12,000 block massive Minecraft map. But I have done pretty much everything that I think I can within the constraints of this to make it an accurate representation of that map. So we can see each of the fast travel towers in game are tribal villages here that you can go and collect a little early game bonus at. The towers are a huge part of the system of the map itself, obviously, and so I felt like I had to replicate that with something important in the map. There are routes that are already built as soon as you spawn in. Which are roughly the same as the actual roads on the map. Shout out to Fixonercius and his map that he posted in the Dremel Discord for that. That was very helpful with the routes. So I would also say that this map, just as a pretext, is not made with balance in mind, per se. It's not made necessarily to be played with a ton of other people and to be fair to everyone. It's meant to be an accurate representation of something that already exists. So with that being said, I tried to do a little bit of rebalancing after I had made the terrain and stuff, but there are some starts that are simply better than others, which we can actually take a look at here. So yeah, just like any regular Civ map, every region approximately has like a specific set of luxury resources. They all have roughly the same strategics if you look around, as long as there's terrain that's viable for it. But in this case, I have done a little bit more customizing of the specific luxuries that are present. So luxury resources are obviously they give you amenities, and that is what you use to keep your citizens happy, and they are unique. So if you have one copy of that luxury resource, then you can't really do anything with a second one except sell it to other civilizations who don't have that. And so the idea here is that you want to have a control over the supply of your luxury resource, and so that way you can profit off of selling it to other players who need that. So the strategic resources, as previously mentioned, they are not necessarily unique to to a location, for the most part, and that's because every civilization needs one of these in order to one of all of these in some way in order to progress throughout the game. And so what I've really done is just kind of spread those out more evenly, for the most part, as long as the terrain allows, with the exception of uranium. Because as we know, uranium is a very powerful late-game resource for nuclear power plants and for nuclear bombs. And uranium has been placed in locations of mythic weapons on the map. So down here, this is where Ascendance is. This is where Malevolentia is. This is Calamity. This is Frenzy. That's Oblivion. And there's Mythbreaker. And then I also have uranium, you may have noticed, in some other spots where there are significant collections of primal energy. So here in the Sunken Astral Body, I got a patch of uranium, and then I also have a bunch up here at Mount Yavlix. Alright, so as previously mentioned, this is not the most balanced. You may have noticed there are natural wonders kind of everywhere, and there's a lot of resources too. And really my goal here is, when I play Civ, I get easily frustrated by having poor starts, and I wanted every start here to be a little overpowered compared to a regular one. And what I really want this to be is just a highly dynamic experience where you can basically start from anywhere and have a reasonable shot to win against the AI at the very least. And that is what I would say I've created. So this is a huge size map, which is the largest that you possibly can have. It's 105 by 65 tiles, and this is a map for 12 players. So what I've done is I have gone around and placed the starting points for those 12 players at 12 different towns in game. And in this section I will go over each one of those starting points and their unique kind of situations, the challenges and advantages that they may have. Alright, so our first start is the first place you'd go in game. This is New Drabyel. New Drabyel is in the Central Plains, Capital Valley region of the map. It's got a really central location for trade or for conquest here dead in the center of the continent. Although I would say its downsides are that it does not have immediate freshwater access, because Flatiron Lake here is not actually considered freshwater because it's a lake bigger than 6 tiles. And the resources and wonders are a little bit more scarce in this area as opposed to some others, which is also kind of true to the game because there's not a whole lot going on resource-wise except for Primal Caverns here, which I have chosen to represent with the Gobustan Wonder. It's not perfect, but there is no green, blue, and red 3-colored hills that I'm aware of in this game, so it'll have to do. It's 3 tiles. There are 3 hills at the Primal Caverns. I think it makes sense to me, So this region here has the incense, the cotton, and 1 copy of the sugar luxury resources, none of which are unique to this region, but they're enough to get you off the ground, and eventually, you will start to look to trade with other people, which is, again, incentivized because this is the central area. You've got, as previously mentioned, you have the Gobustan Wonder over here, which I believe gives you, it's 3 cultural production per tile, and it also gives you, I think it doubles your oil improvements in the late game. Could be wrong on that. And then you've also got a couple of neighboring city-states over here. We've got one here where the Druid Temple would be. And then there's also one up here at Havelock, which is kind of debatably a neighboring city-state, but it's somewhat within the area. Alright, city number 2. This is the Great Painted City of Dusps, my personal home base every time that I play the Dremel map. And this is, I think, one of the stronger starts for sure, primarily because you have immediate proximity to 2 wonders. You've got the Zhangye Dansha right here, which are a pretty perfect choice to represent those terracotta painted mountains right behind Dusps, as well as the Crater Lake wonder, which just honestly wrote itself. That was such an easy pick as the sunken astral body here east of Dusps in the mountain range. Dusps also has a lot of strengths in its yields and the resources of the land, just like Aklaroma in the lore of the world, which I believe has like superpowered aquifers beneath it that make all of the flora megaflora. And they have the honey and the wine luxury resources, which are both unique to this region. So they can totally monopolize that if this player has his shit together. The wine resources is a reference to the winery the vineyard that I believe is somewhere around here or here. It's one of those two, I think. And then the honey, obviously, you find bees all over the place in this region. You also find honeycomb and honey bottles, I think, in chests as part of that loot table. The grassland yields are pretty good, and there's patches of rainforest and woods all around the place. So this is a strong start for sure. Although I would say there is one thing about this start that could be construed as either a strength or a weakness, and that is its proximity to 3 different city-states. So we've got the Havelock city-state down here. We've got I think it's Maraza up here, the little village with the Vanaklugged shrine. And then the ruins of Salvarukt, which I have resurrected into a real city-state over here. And so these 3 city-states can kind of impede real expansion out from Dusps. But if you know how to use your city-states, or if you get good ones that spawn in there, then that can be a huge bonus too. So this player should be in position to contend for a victory, for sure. Alright, our third start is the town of Gozak, here situated in the North Heartwood. Gozak start is a very strong one that has fantastic food yields from the heavily forested area and rainforested area up in the North Heartwood, as well as access to some later game strategic resources in the South Heartwood, or Mael's Desolation. And this is also perfectly situated to block off access and control access to the southeast via the land. The entirety of this portion of the continent basically runs through Gozak. So Gozak has a few luxury resources available to them. They have jade, they have cotton shared with the Central Plains region. They've got coffee, which is a unique luxury resource to them, so they're the only region that has that, and they've also got access to pearls off the coast here. As far as wonders go, Gozak is situated directly next to the Verdant Labyrinth, which I have depicted using Piotahi, I believe Milford Sound in New Zealand, which is a fjord I think better represents, or probably at best represents what the Verdant Labyrinth actually looks like in game. In my old version of the map, this was Giant's Causeway, and it was right up against Gozak, and that meant that Gozak was kind of unbeatable when it came to early game culture production, especially. I think this is a little bit of a weaker wonder probably overall, and it's also farther away now. So I have thoroughly nerfed Gozak, despite there not really being a reason to do that. And then, if we look at city-states, there's one city-state that is uniquely positioned to be exploited by Gozak, and that is Fort Solitude down here at the southern tip of Mael's Desolation, which is where you find the Dar Shrine in game. Alright, start number 4 is Firteid, a favorite town of mine in the earlier versions, and one that got crazy buffed in the new version. This is one of the cooler builds I've ever seen. and this is also an extremely strong start. The main advantage of this is that that this start gives you access to the entirety of the Black Jungle region with basically no competition for it at all, no city-states or anything. And it also spawns you pretty much immediately between three wonders. Piopiotahi, as previously mentioned, the Verdant Labyrinth. I've got Signi de Bemaraha, as like these spires over here at in the Black Jungle when you first come across. I remember very vividly coming across these for the first time when I emerged from the Verdant Labyrinth in my first Dremel playthrough, and that was stunning. And so I felt like I had to give this to the Black Jungle over Laurent Call, even though they have similar structures. And then the Fountain of Youth here as the Kiln of Virtuo, which again, some of these just write themselves. The Firteid start always, in my games, seems to end up creating at least a 20 to 25 population capital city. This is a fantastic food start with all this rainforest here. It's got two unique luxury resources, the spices and tea resources, as well as access to sugar over in the marsh to the east, and I believe turtles off the coast on reefs, or at least a couple. Yeah, 1, 2. Alright, start number 5 is kind of the hard mode start. This is New Sahd. Sahd is a beautiful location in the game, and it's kind of a curse if you get it on this map, because this is a isolated island in the southeast corner of the map off the Black Jungle's coast, and it is separated by ocean tiles. So until you unlock cartography, or unless you're playing as like Coupe, or I think the Norway leaders also have that ability, then you can't cross these tiles and meet the rest of the continent until probably the medieval era. So you're kind of forced into isolationism early. But in order to compensate for that, because I did play this, I've won from all of these starts against AI, and so I understand that some of them are tougher than others, and so I've done a little bit of balancing. So what I've done on this one is there is an extra tribal village here that is not a real tower. This is just where the Sahd Palace is. I've just given them a pity tower, I guess. I believe all the strategic resources are here. And they also have a unique luxury resource, which is silk, that you can't find anywhere else, as well as sugar, and then pearls and turtles off the coast. They also, you may have noticed, have 2 natural wonders situated perfectly to make an incredible campus right here. This is the Great Barrier Reef. I don't think that there is actually a great reef immediately off this coast, but I do remember that there is one somewhere around like here that was super impressive when I first found it, so I threw it down. There wouldn't be any use to the player out here. And then we have Mount Kilimanjaro over here, which acts as a volcano, because, as we know, there are volcanoes here in the northwest portion of Sahd, including the one that you forge Frenzy in, which becomes a uranium source. Start number 6 is another good one. This is the new Mossfield start over here in the Spearhead Forest. The main advantage of this one is that it is completely insulated by this extreme mountain, except for the staircase here, and then where the mountain range ends up here. And I believe that it has the largest starting territory kind of allocated, which is basically all of the grassland here, of any of the starting locations. I used to have floodplains along here, but that's not really super accurate to the map, and also it made it super overpowered, kind of in the same way that Firteid was, and so I took that away. But this is still a very strong start. We've got 2 luxury resources here that are incredibly powerful and that are unique to this region, which are the tobacco and the olives resources spread throughout the forest here. And then we also have whales off the coast in a couple of spots. There are 2 wonders here in this region. I have the Chocolate Hills placed down here, not particularly inspired by anything, I just thought that they fit with the Spearhead Forest look pretty well. And then we also, over here on the southern Shattered Peninsula Island, we have the Cliffs of Dover, which, if the player goes out and they manage to find this and settle down here in the mid to late game usually, then this can be a very strong city off the coast here. Alright, starting at the back half here. Start number 7, Highfall, is probably up there with Sahd as the second or single most difficult spawn in the game, for different reasons though. This one is also a little bit isolated because it's up here in the northeast corner of the map, but it's not separated by ocean. They should meet the Mossfield player pretty quickly, and probably also the Dusps player at some point in the early game. But they are entirely on tundra for the most part, unless they forward settle Spearhead Forest. And what I've done to compensate for that is given them a wonder right next to them, which is the Ubuntu Hollow Wonder. This is also not inspired by anything in particular on the map. It's just one that goes on tundra, I guess. And they also have access, the most easily I would say, to the Pamukkale Wonder, which is the Faehrcycle Plateau, like the kind of rainbow-colored, like, salt basins, I want to say, up at that region once you climb that, which is a super, super cool sight the first time. So yeah, the Highfall player, really, I think that their goal is to survive until the late game, get out into the non-tundra areas, and once they do survive to the late game, then they can control access to Faehrcycle, which is quite lucrative if they can make it that long. As far as luxuries go, they've got amber in the woods along the tundra, they've got whales off the coast, and then they also have furs, which are a unique resource to this area. They also have one city-state up here. This is the location of the Shivering Pass Inn, I believe it's called. Just the little inn building outside the Frozen Bight, which I thought was nice, and I wanted to include here. Also to help the Highfall player, because God knows they fucking need it. Starting point number 8 is the coastal village of Mohta in the Loran-Call region. This is a entirely coastal region with no access to fresh water, unless you go up into the Tharxax plains here. But that kind of compensates for that with abundant sea resources here in its immediate vicinity, as well as a lot of resources and good yields with the rainforest up here in Loran-Call proper, I guess. It's got the Halong Bay Wonder here to kind of represent the Loran-Call Tower. I thought that works really well. And then they also have 2 unique luxury resources in the citrus and the cocoa resources, which I believe are both actually in the game in this region. I know there's no oranges in Minecraft, but I want to say that there were like palm trees with pumpkins on them when I came through here. So that matches well. There is also one neighboring city-state here. This is Iloa. So yeah, the yields are good, and then there's also a lot of space to expand. So if this player does not expand quickly, though, then they can kind of find themselves trapped on this little portion of the peninsula. So this is one that has to be good in the early game. Alright, starting point number 9 is Tharxax City, none other than probably my favorite city in the west. This one has pretty middling yields on the actual starting area, and not a ton of resources either. You start out here in the Tharxax Plains. They're plains. They have the cotton and mercury luxury resources, as well as a little bit of sugar here and there if you go out into the marsh swamp. But the biggest thing with this start is that it has the easiest access to expand westward into some uninhabited areas of the western continent, namely the Carmine and Hellcrags regions, as well as Anir-Nogur, which I do not have city-state or even a major civilization starting in. There are a couple of wonders in the immediate vicinity. We have Lake Retba here. I thought was a pretty decent stand-in for the Slime Island that is due east of Tharxax City, but I shifted it a little bit north because of the way that some lakes work. And then also Sahara al-Beta. Unfortunately, there was nothing that I could really do to replicate the magic of the Gay Desert. So White Desert was the next best thing that I could find, and it's also 4 tiles, and that's, you know, I think the rainbow portion of Anir-Nogur is about like this much. So that's the best that I could do it justice. And then this start point is also in close proximity to 2 city-states. It's got the Iloa one that is pretty much between it and Mohta, and there's also the Raveloth city-state. which is blocking access to the Hellcrags, unless you have suzerainty or unless you can conquer it. Alright, our 10th start is Fort Nimahj here up in the northern Tharxax plains, and this is pretty similar in terrain and in resources to its other counterpart. It shares the mercury resource as well as the sugar one, but it's got a little bit more proximity to different wonders as well as some more interesting dynamics with the northern civilizations here in the northwest. So yeah, this one covers the Ebony Veldt as well as Northern Tharxax. It spawns right next to the Pantanal Wonder, which is a little bit out of place, but I wanted to put it here just so that the North Tharxax has an advantage over the South Tharxax, which has a little bit more space in its starting location. This also has the Ivory resource, which is unique to the Ebony Veldt and to the Inner Nogar Desert, as well as salt, which can be found all over the place, but I believe this is the first time that it has come up. Yeah, there's also one city-state in this area, which is Elvet, I believe, over here, which is actually should be more up here, but this is the one that's over by the foundry. Alright, starting point number 11 is Ebonrun, and I think this is probably one of the most fun to do as like a specific situational challenge run start. This is in the middle here of the Mount Ebonfire region, which is enclosed off by mountains, and in a significant change that I made from my previous version, I have made this all alpine tundra to kind of reflect the fact that there's not really anything that would grow there. It's more of like a badlands in reality, but that's not an option here. Again, I have 5 land terrain options, so tundra it is. But it spawns right next to the Mount Vesuvius Wonder, which is a stand-in for Mount Ebonfire itself, and there is a massive abundance of mineral wealth in this region, including the diamonds luxury resource and the silver resource, the latter of which is unique to this region, as well as there are some pearls off the coast if you manage to settle a city here, and you can get access to this tile, or if you go all the way around up through Casai. It is mostly enclosed off from its neighbors, aside from this little pass, and it is kind of intended to compete with this player for the Casai region, for control of Casai, which I think is a cool little tweak added in there. It's also very close to Elvet, although it is separated by mountain range, so they might not necessarily meet them very early, but they are somewhat within range. And yeah, this is an interesting one, especially over time with repeated eruptions of Vesuvius. These tiles can end up getting really, really powerful, because every time that it erupts, it makes the soil more volcanic, and so it makes it more fertile, and so you can get more and more food and more production, and eventually these like diamond tiles, if you have mines on them, they can become like 4 food 8 production. They can go insane. Alright, and our final start, number 12, is here in the autumnal, pretend it's autumnal, the autumnal forest of Marajul. This is the town of Okeke. I think this is probably the most balanced start in the map. It's not crazy overpowered. There's only one wonder, a few tiles away from the main spawn. There are good yields, but not incredible, and there's one unique luxury resource with some room to expand, but competition for it. So we've got the Truffles resource, which is unique to this area. And then we also have Amber, which is shared with the Veric Plateau, and then there are pearls off the coast and in the main lake here. The one wonder is Ikil, the Cenote. I don't know if exactly what is here on the map. I don't know what it's called. I know there's the pyramid there. It's surrounded by like terracotta mountain, but I thought that this made sense to me as kind of a stand-in for that. It's also a pretty strong wonder. And then there are not really any city-states in this area, unless you eke to the north. There is a city-state here on the island of Dusk. If you can manage to get there, and the Okeke player is the closest to that, they're probably put in the best position to find that over time. Alright, so that's the entirety of the start locations, but there are also some other regions that are not inhabited, per se, by players that are important to the map, and I'll go over those now. So here we've got the Carmine and the Hellcrags regions, which in-game are basically nether. They're lava regions and very, very desert badlandy. The best I can do in this game is desert for that. But I think that there are some things that I've managed to get mostly right about that. Here we got the Eye of the Sahara and the Carmine, which represents the birthing grounds area down there, which is kind of freaky. We have the city-state of Raveloth, which is acting as the guardian through the Crimson Gorge here. If you don't have suzerainty of them, or unless you can climb cliffs, then you cannot. You have to get through them in order to make it to the Hellcrags. And if you do make it to the Hellcrags, then you can find the Dead Sea over here, which is kind of my stand-in for the big lava moat around the burnt palace, as well as a tower, or a tribal village, and then a ton of strategic resources and mineral wealth, because there are just diamond ore blocks littered all over the place here in this area. Alright, as in the game, Faehrcycle is an important location, especially for the late game. This can be accessed by any player really in the whole entirety of the East, but primarily through this route here from Highfall Tundra. And late game control of this is very, very powerful. If we learned anything from the history of the continent of Drehmal, whoever controls Mount Yavlix controls the realm. And in this world, Mount Yavlix is Mount Everest, and the primal energy is uranium. We've also got one city-state here. We've got Schlanko, good old Schlanko here, just hanging out. If you discover them, then that can be very, very useful in order to get like a trade route through here. In my one playthrough I've done on this updated version of the map, I immediately settled a city up here, and then I was able to use them as kind of a trading post in order to get food to this city, because there's no yields on snow. Then we've got the Islands of Dusk and Dawn. There are no major civilizations up here, but there is. I did throw one city-state here. I know there's not really anything there in game, except for like Atomic mines and facilities and stuff like that here and there. Although there is one over here. Nah, that's fine. But the Isles of Dusk and Dawn do have a unique luxury resource, which is the Dyes resource, which is kind of a reference to all the crazy crystals that they have all over the place in different colors. And there's also one wonder here, which is Matotapila, just a reference to the colossal mountains over here on the Isle of Dusk. The Casai region is one that I've had difficulty with. Initially, I did have a starting point here. I've flipped between having this and Sahd be starting points. But what I've ultimately found is that starting here kind of sucks no matter what, because it's desert, so you're not getting good yields, even though you start next to Uluru, which is a great wonder to start next to. And even with these floodplains, like, the problem is that you're blocked in by the Ebonrun player and the Okeke player, and so unless you can war with one of them very, very quickly and win that war, then you're pretty much going to be stuck on this little peninsula for the entire game, and that's kind of just a death sentence immediately. So Casai is open. There's no city-state here. It's just open to be expanded into by either these two players primarily, or by anyone else who manages to make it up here. Here's an interesting one. Over here in the Purity Peaks region, we do have a city-state of Hevlock, and we've also got a unique luxury resource in this area, the Marble resource, which is a reference to the white peaks and mountains that are all in this area. And there's also a wonder here to be found, which is the Paititi wonder, a little Lost City action right over here, where if you've played the game, you might recognize this would be the ruins of Sel Melvir, which is the 25% story mark location. And then we've already been over Mael's Desolation, but if you've watched my other video at this point, you may remember a little something south of Mael's Desolation. Alright, so to go ahead and show off this map a little bit, I have gone ahead and jumped into a game. You can see I went random with 12 random leaders here, and I've been assigned Basil II of Byzantium here. And we got the Gozak start. I went ahead and used some cheaty console commands to reveal the entire map, so we can take a look at what this looks like in reality. We can see that the burnt woods here on the South Heartwood. I'm proud of that little touch. We've got Babylon here has spawned in as Firteid, which is going to give me nightmares. They've got a fire here for some reason. It appears that Mali has spawned in as Sahd down here. Patna, so this would be India, I think specifically, yeah, this would be Chandragupta, is the Mossfield spawn, and he's got Singapore over here as the Helmshire city-state, which I think I forgot to mention in the WorldBuilder. We've got Amsterdam here. The Netherlands have spawned in as the Highfall, which sucks for them, unfortunately. Mitla is up here. Samarkand has spawned in as Self-Referential. Murgar is God, I still remember this. Maraza. Indonesia has spawned in as Dusps. Jealous. Urgench here is Hevlock. Cairo has taken its spot. That would be Saladin Sultan. Yes. Has taken the spot here in Drabyel. Hopefully he doesn't conquer everyone. You have the Kree have spawned in here as Mohta. That's interesting. The Aztecs have taken Tharxax City. That, you know what, that actually kind of makes sense to me. The Mapuche are North Tharxax. Portugal is Mount Vesuvius. Sucks for you. And then Germany is Okeke. So yeah, this is what it looks like in game. Not all that different, but it's, you know, everything's a little bit smoother because it's actually rendering stuff now. It doesn't look, the color differences are not as stark between terrain features. It looks a little bit smoother, you know. I've thought about looking into like mods to see if I could make these trees red, but I don't know if there's really anything that could be done there, at least for now. So yeah, this is how it looks, and maybe I'll play this out. We will have to see. Alright, so yeah, I think that's gonna do it for this video. Thanks for watching this far if you have. Let me know any thoughts you have on this project. If there's interest in like a world download, if people want to play this for themselves, or if they want to play this in a group, then let me know. I'm happy to give out this file that you can just throw in your WorldBuilder saves. I think is probably the easiest way to do it. But yeah, see you around.